That should be plenty of time if I talk fast enough, so that'll be okay. It's actually such a simple value that we have, everybody playing their part, that I've had to work really hard to make it fill the full half an hour. What I thought was, it's really practical. So we were worshiping, I just looked up 1 James 22, which has always been one of my favourite verses, which is, when you hear the word, do it. Don't deceive yourself. So don't merely listen, but actually do it. And I really felt that's the theme for today's talk, if that makes sense. So everyone playing their part, what does that actually mean in practice? So before we start, we're talking through our values. So I thought it would be helpful to just mention what have we just done so far already. So Steve talked about being biblical, and that he mentioned some books as well, various ones that are useful. And I remember I had this one at home in my bookshelf, which is Bruce and Stan's Guide to the Bible, which is a bit of a bill of text sort of still, and it's also a little bit of a dummy's guide. So if you've never seen it, you can't write new. You can get it off eBay for like £3, and second hand and stuff like that off Amazon Marketplace. But it's really, really accessible. So if you kind of think the Bible is just really too big and confusing, where do I start? How does it all fit together? This gives you a really nice summary and an overview, and arguably it's accessible for young teenagers, but also adults as well. So really, really useful tool. I've had it for quite a few years, and I still dip into it every now and again when I want to check where does this fit in the Bible story, how does this fit work. There it is as well. Okay, so then Richard spoke on remaining part of something bigger, which was really, really good and inspired me to keep it really short and simple and focused. So that's my intention, to kind of follow in his footsteps and keep it really focused. And then the Brett's last week, we're talking about the journey of making disciples, which I got quite excited about hearing that. Again, the simplicity of the gospel. Is about seeing people saved and then having a hunger to meet God and then meeting God and being transformed. And then transformed and added and belonging to the church and then becoming fruitful disciples as well. We took the dog for a walk this morning through some fields up at Cat's Hill, and there was kind of barley and wheat stuff growing. And I was just thinking again about that the one little seed that makes, it's like not just one ear, is it, that's got like loads of new seeds on, but there's a whole plant that comes up out of that one seed. So that 10, 20, 60, 100-fold thing, it really is multiplication, isn't it, is a key thing. But not every seed falls in the ground and grows. There were a couple of bare patches, don't there? He said, why is that? Just right over there, hasn't grown. For some reason, tiny little shoots, but they weren't the full plants of the rest of it. It's weird, isn't it? Not every seed grows. But when it does, and it takes root, it grows amazingly, and the benefit is huge. So being truly planted and part of the body is quite clear. So today, everyone playing their part is one of our values. They're on our website. If you want to look at it on there, they're all listed on there as well. And there's a little strap line that goes underneath, which I wasn't so familiar with, I must admit, which is encouraging healthy commitment and responsibility in owning the vision and the values. And that kind of vision of followers of Jesus, what are the other two? Friends of Paul and okay, nice and easy, 3 really simple things to remember, but actually it's our commitment to that, which I think Jonathan said at the family night on Wednesday. There's only so many ways you can write this, isn't it? Every church basically has these same values, don't they? So what does it mean in practice? So that's why we go back to 1 James 22. Don't just hear the word, but we do as often as well. In fact, don't just hear yourselves and deceive, don't hear the word, sorry, and deceive yourself. It's quite a strong phrase, isn't it? Oh yeah, listen to it, it's good. Yeah, I know that, it's good. But actually, we don't do it, that's when we're deceiving ourselves, thinking that we can do better. Okay, so Lord Kitchener, unfortunate connotations obviously with Lord Kitchener. However, this poster, everybody knows it, of him pointing out, and wherever you go in the room, he's looking at you. You can't hide, he's looking at you, he's pointing his finger at you saying, are you playing your role? Are you playing your part? Are you doing what's there? And so I thought I would start off with a bit of a puzzle. So I need 16 people. That's what I need, 16 people, all different ages. But there's some blue tack up here which is required to make the puzzle work. So there's going to be some tall people and some smaller people involved in this process. And let me get rid of the thing. Some of the puzzle pieces are really hard. You know, you get those puzzles like tins of baked beans. Some are just like that. Okay, really hard ones as well. So, Trace, would you like one of the really hard pieces of the puzzle?
Yeah.
You've got a really interesting bit there that you can have as well. Would you like to join in and help us with the puzzle? There you go. Does it make any sense? Yeah. Would you like one of the really hard ones? Really, really difficult. Tell us that. You get the interesting piece. You get the interesting piece of the puzzle. Would you like a more interesting bit? Do you want to swap for the more interesting bit? So we give the more interesting to go in. Okay, there we go. Oh no, we've already got one. Hey, would you like one of those? Would you like one of those as well? That is that for a piece of puzzle. That is quality, isn't it? There is no question you'll be able to sort that without the puzzle. Okay. You've got a fairly mirror image. Would you like a bit of the really boring puzzle? Tempted? Not tempted? Here we go. Sally's feels like she's missing out. Okay. So, those of you that have been given the puzzles pieces, you've got to work it out. You've got to display it on there. Are we ready? Steady, go. You've got to work out how to solve the puzzle up there. Help the small, shorter people to get the blue tack down. Work out where it goes. To make it easier, they don't have to overlap. You can just go and box up. It won't be quite perfect, but it might be slightly easier to do.
I reckon they need help.
Does it? That's gorgeous. These little ones here, they are just the edges. Well done. They're like the square edges of the bow. No, the edges, not the middle.
Oh, these are the edges.
It could be a simple.
We even got some results over there now. Sally looks for a teacher. Very good. That's just got it. That's good sign, yeah. Where's he got the hand? Okay. Okay, so it's definitely not quite right, is it? That's it. Well done, that's good. Well, stick that one there, there we go. I think if you put it there, that will probably do. Yeah, and then now you've got another one. So put that one down there, hopefully. Okay. But well done, everybody, that's an excellent job. Doesn't that look good? The level of disappointment in the room is, you can actually tell that we're going, this is rubbish, there's bits missing, aren't there? It's rubbish, even as a group activity, that was rubbish because there's bits missing. I actually gave out 16 bits of paper, but I don't think we've got 16 bits on here. Who's good at counting? How many bits have we got on there? 12 bits. So we are with 4 people have not been here to be able to do what they can do to complete the picture. So we've got 4 more people here who could come and add the last bits, the missing bits of the puzzle, who really weren't up for it earlier. If you can come and stick your bits on there, then hopefully it will look complete. Okay. Oh, if people don't play their part, it really does cause problems. It was. I was joking. Yeah. No, exactly that. Play to the nth degree. Okay, so it's a person we've done. As we've worked together and we've achieved something. But that's the reality, isn't it? Have you ever done that thing where you do a jigsaw and there's one bit missing? And it's just like, oh no. And you get it from a charity shop, you think it's going to be okay. And it's actually quite upset. Once we had a Star Wars thing or something for the boys, and there was one bit missing, but it was kind of a navy blue bit, so we got a bit of paper and we coloured it in and marked it and put it behind it to stop that sense of disappointment and try and bring it back to life a little bit. But obviously, those 4 people that were missing was actually a major issue. The whole thing was not complete. It was never going to be complete. And genuinely, it felt a bit like, that's a bit of an anticlimax, isn't it? We've worked quite hard, we've solved most of it. It wasn't that easy to do. There's a few bits like, Sally going, is that bit in the middle, and does it go on the end? And, trying to work it out, trying to make it make sense, but it didn't make sense without everybody playing their part. So a very simple illustration, but hopefully helps us remember the importance that if one of us is missing, then it does actually really cause a problem to the whole. And the body's obviously intentional. I came across this phrase the other day, teamwork makes the dream work. I thought, that's a bit of a funny phrase. I said it, and then that's a bit funny. What does that mean? Teamwork makes the dream work. It's obviously just the nearest rhyming word to team, isn't it? Teamwork and dreamwork. But actually, there are a few people that have used it in the past. So teamwork makes the dream work means that when a group of people share a common goal and work together to reach it, they can accomplish more things than they would have been able to do on their own. Some say that teamwork may be the only way for a project or group to succeed at all. That's actually quite a strong statement again, isn't it? That really, it does create a team. And although Jesus was here on his own, he didn't carry on his mission on his own, did he? He got his disciples together. One of them was a bit of a bad egg, but he still had a team, and they still worked together to try and achieve the purposes that he had for them. And from that team then becomes the church, and it grows from there. So, competition time in true Richard style. Who's that? Burnley? No. Much nearer to home. Bromsgrove Sporting, isn't it? Bromsgrove Sporting. So for Bromsgrove Sporting to be any good, what do they have to do? Do they all do that thing that you do at school when you're about 3 years old, or is it 5, and all chase the ball together like a herd of animals chasing a ball? Or do people have different roles? What kind of roles do you have in a football team? Goalie, yeah. No, that's my goalie's pretty important. Goalie is pretty important, let's be fair. What ones have we got? Centre forward, I like that, yeah. Right back? Midfield, very good. Okay, so there's obviously a whole load of them, aren't there? But then we've also got the coach as well, and somebody has to be the captain. We've got defenders, quite important as well. The physio, because obviously they're all running around the floor, they're in pain and injured all the time, because they've tripped over themselves, that sort of thing. And then, who's this? And if you get this, I will be truly and utterly amazed. Obviously, there's a theme going on in the photos, isn't there? It is Bromsgrove Cricket Club, well done. To be very precise, it is the second 11. It's the championship winning side of 2016, apparently. And they're all cracking open bottles of beer to celebrate. But in a cricket team, you can't play that on your own either, can you? You need a whole load of people again to be able to do that. And I quite like cricket, particularly because of the fielding positions. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are in cricket, there's always going to be something you can do somewhere. You can just stand on the boundary and get the ball back off if somebody hits it well. There's always something to do. And then, of course, silly point at the bottom. So even for people like me that don't really know what they're doing, you can be silly point. And the reason it's called silly point is because you've got to be really silly to field in that position. It's really near to the batsman, and you're either silly mid-on or silly mid-off, which is a bit like the near side and far side of the car. So it depends which side of the batsman you're standing. But you have to be pretty daft to be in that position. So there's something for everybody in a cricket team. The other analogy that we use in the West particularly, but in England in particular, I think, we use sports analogies a lot, which is why I've used those two for teams. But we also use army analogies a lot as well. There's two kinds of military and sport, two of the ways to talk about teamwork and working together. And with the military, I didn't realise, but part of the advertising campaign when I was looking at this is to say that there are actually 7 roles within the military which together make up the army as a whole. And the first one is probably the most obvious role, which is the combat role. You have to have your troops out there fighting. That's what an army essentially is for. And as God's church, we're sometimes described as the army, aren't we? We're kind of on God's mission, it's an army, it's a purpose that we're about. The second is the engineers. The engineer corps, they do everything. They build stuff, they repair stuff, they fix stuff, they make stuff happen. They physically get the troops to the right place at the right time. But then logistics and support, essentially the chefs. Okay, how are you going to get these people there? The chefs and the drivers. Without them, the army can't function at all. We then have HR and finance, very important, human resources and finance. Finance is those, and if we don't fund it, we can't make it happen. If we don't look after people, we can't get them doing what they need to do. And then intelligence. Some people obviously would question that in some army roles. So they don't have any at all, but there we go. IT and communications as well. So communication is very important, making sure that the troops know what they should be doing, we're getting the orders out to the right people at the right time. And then medical, we have to patch people up. So when they're injured, harmed through the battle, we have to patch them up to get them either back out to the front or to repatriate them back home and make sure that they can function again and live after the war the battle has been won. And then amazingly, the seventh and most important part of the army, according to their website, is music. Okay, I wasn't expecting that one. But then went, wow, this is just a description of the church, isn't it really? Everything that we need to do. So we've got the combat troops, us out there actually fighting, saving people, not doing it ourselves, but witnessing to the point of saving people, the battle that we're in this fallen world. The engineers, the people that make stuff happen behind the scenes, that make things occur and actually help us make sort of strategy and plans and moving things forward. All of that logistics and support, we're constantly supporting each other on all the things that go together. Sending out missionaries into the mission field needs support and need that to happen. Finance, again, our giving, our generosity is part of that as well. Intelligence, IT and comms, that need to be able to speak the gospel, communicate, encourage each other, stir one another on. And medical, a massive part of the church, isn't it? Coming in and repairing people, saving people, patching people back up, putting them back together again, both spiritually, physically, and sometimes emotionally, mentally as well. And then music, that worshipping God, that kind of purpose of coming together and worshipping God is all there. So I was quite shocked at what the similarity is with that really. But then there's some biblical principles behind this kind of game and or sports and army type things. So I've got lots of Bible verses really, and I want to be able to read them through to us. But this one, with most of us have heard, we are what, according to this picture, we are what being built into. Somebody say stones somewhere. So living stones, which God is building into his spiritual temple. So if you think of a brick wall, I always think a brick wall or a stone wall is a bit passive, isn't it really? It just kind of, if one stone's on there, you're just thinking, another stone, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to really make the wall fall down. Take one brick out, and actually the wall won't collapse. There's not a hole in it, but it won't collapse. But actually this is what's known as a living wall, or a green wall. And that's actually got plants growing up. And I think in some ways that's almost a better picture to remember that if one of those plants died, that wasn't there, then you'd see a big brown patch in the middle of that wall. That living wall wouldn't function if some of those plants had broken down, or indeed no longer in there. The other one, which most of us know, is the body that we've already talked on here. So one body, many parts. The human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body. So it is with the body of Christ. Some of us are Jews, some of us are Gentiles, which means non-Jews, and some of us are slaves, and some are free. And we were talking a little bit on Wednesday night about the kind of almost like the class divide that we still have in our country a little bit. That idea of slavery is obviously not a regular everyday thing, although we're aware of slavery issues and modern slavery. But essentially that idea of some of us are bosses and some of us are workers, that kind of concept of different skills or different levels or different abilities and different incomes is still relevant within this as well. But all together, we are still part of the same body. But we've all been baptised into one body by one Spirit, and we share the same Spirit. Yes, the body has many different parts, not just one part. So, as we go through this, there's some really sort of intentional application at the end. So I've got a little reminder of some of the parts of the body, and a pen. Hopefully there's enough for everybody. Hoping there is. And this is like a real visual reminder that we can maybe go home and stick on our fridge They go, okay, which part of the body am I? What should I be doing? What is my role? Who am I? Not just what should I be doing, but who am I as part of the body? So, as we go through, just use that as making a note, just use it as a reminder for yourself. So everyone playing their part is a responsibility. And that's part of our strapline, that taking responsibility for playing our part. It's not just going to happen on its own. Something we have to do. But this is the great thing about it, is it's mutually beneficial. If each of us comes and plays our part, each of us gives to each other, but everybody else gives back, actually we all win this, aren't we? This is the lovely part of this responsibility aspect, is that we get, as much as we give, we get back to ourselves as well. In 1 Corinthians 12, where this is mainly taken from, it also goes on to say, the foot can't suddenly say, because I'm not a hand, I don't belong. And the ear can't say, because I'm not an eye, that doesn't stop it being part of the body. So we can kind of try and opt out, but actually once we're part of God's family, we are part of His family. How we see that working out in practice is a separate thing for us to work out individually. But you can't just opt out and go, it's not relevant, I'm no longer part of the family. Ultimately, if we detach a bit of our body, it stops working, doesn't it? It shrivels up and dies, ultimately. So if we detach ourselves completely, that's what happens. But if we're going to sit passively and go, no, I'm not doing the bit I want to do, I'm not an eye, or a hand, or a foot, or an ear, I'm just going to sit here but not function. That's missing the point, isn't it? We are part of the family, and we do have a role and a function. So more Bible verses linked to this. And this again we mentioned on Wednesday night. God uses us. This is the key thing. God, come and tell me something. Give me a word. Speak to me. Tell me what I should do. But God, who encourages those who are discouraged, so that's good. God is going to encourage us. That's good. Encouraged us by not a big booming voice from heaven, not flashing lights, but by the arrival of Titus. And his presence was a joy. So he was a blessing just by being there. But so was the news that he brought. So his words of encouragement that he received from you. So the things that you did for him, he's brought back and encouraged the writer at this point. When he told us how much you long to see me and how sorry you are for what happened and how loyal you are to me, I was filled with joy. This is real relational stuff. We're talking big bust-ups happened here. Something's gone wrong. Someone's fallen out with somebody. Someone's had to say sorry. Someone's put it right. And still, out of all of that, we come back to the point where we're going, this was God's encouragement. So I thought we'd messed it all up here. It sounds like it's all gone wrong, doesn't it? We've had to send a messenger over, but actually, God's going, no, this is how you listen to each other. Take heed of each other. Listen to those words. Encourage each other with that. So, along with 1 James 22, another of my favourite verses is this one, because I have to be reminded of it myself a lot. Stir up the gift, it's sometimes called, from Timothy. I remember your genuine faith, for you share the faith that first filled your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I know that the same faith continues strong in you. This is why I remind you to fan into flames or stir up the gift, the spiritual gift that God gave you when I laid my hands on you. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. So, I thought this is an encouraging line to add on. I could have left it off, but it's important, isn't it? So, never be ashamed to tell others about our Lord. And I just thought that's back to that mission thing again, isn't it? And why we're here, why we're going to encourage each other and help each other. And stir up those gifts, because it's not just about being the body ourselves, not just going, I'm on this body somewhere, but actually God's given us gifts and purpose. So we need each other. There's that bit of missing jigsaw. We need to fill that space. We need to encourage each other. That's, if nothing else, being here and completing the picture is an encouragement, isn't it? We know that with a bit of that missing, we kind of go, we're a bit like, oh, yeah, not really completed. We're rubbish, really. Not what we wanted. But actually, just being here and completing the picture is an encouragement to others. So however much we try and go, well, I've got nothing to give, actually that level of encouragement is there. And don't give up meeting together. And that doesn't mean don't physically give up coming to a meeting, although I guess it includes that. That really means don't give up belonging. Don't give up being part of what's going on. Don't give up being part of God's family. However you see that working out for you in your area, your sphere of influence, your friends. Don't give up belonging and being part of that. And this is just blinding the obvious, isn't it, really? It's very hard to play your part in a team game or a team activity if you're not there. You can't. If the goal is missing, if the goal is missing, the team are going to struggle big time, aren't they? No one else is allowed to use their hands to stop the ball. Those are goal in special position. They're not there. We've got a problem. Also, it's very hard to play a team game if you're there on your own. You're trying to play cricket on your own. You can't bowl with yourself. You can't wicket keep while you're also batsman. It doesn't work, does it? You can't be, I'm part of the universal church. I'm going to be on my own as part of the universal church. There has to be an element of being together. So, a couple more verses which I hope help with this as well, which is that we need each other. Part 2, a spiritual gift is given to each of us so we can help each other. To one person, the Spirit gives the ability to give wise advice. To another, the same Spirit gives a message of special knowledge. The same Spirit gives great faith to another, and to someone else, the one Spirit gives the gift of healing. He gives one person the power to perform miracles and another the ability to prophesy. He gives someone else the ability to discern whether a message is from the Spirit of God or from another spirit. Still another person is given the ability to speak in unknown languages, while another is given the ability to interpret what has been said. It is the one and only Spirit who distributes all these gifts. He alone decides which gift each person should have. So, 1 James 22 says, don't just hear it, but do something with it. So over to you, or us, because I'm partner here, so I'm looking over to you, but I'm not including myself, so over to us, let's actually do this now. So what is your part? If you go, I don't know what my part is, I don't know, what does that actually mean? Does it mean I've got to put chairs out? Or no, we're not talking about just what do we do to facilitate our meeting together. We're talking about how do we actually encourage each other? How do we stir one another on? How do we fan into flame again? A gift. How do we function? What is our role? Ask God first, but then if we're not sure, ask each other. Remember how that encouragement came? It came from Titus. It wasn't big, lights in the sky. It was Titus coming and giving encouragement. Sometimes just asking each other, we go, yeah, it's that. I see that in you. I see that gift in you. Stir it up. Let's do it. Use the gifts that uniquely you can bring. And I've capitalised for you, but I think that word uniquely is important as well, isn't it? If one of us is missing, we are stuck. It's only you that can fill that slot, that space. And it's not about what we have, or our abilities, or our skills, but it's actually about us being, isn't it? It's about us being, and just being here with each other is an encouragement. And if that's all you do in Christ, that's all I do is turn up and be here and be encouraged. You are an encouragement to each other, to us. Being here, when I say here, I mean us as part of Gracechurch, not just these meeting settings. So, with your bit of paper that you've got in front of you, with your ears, face, eyes, nose, whatever else it is, if you go, well, I really don't know what my gift is, then I want us to just take a moment to pray and say, God, will you just speak to us? Will you speak to us clearly? And then, I felt this really strongly, was to take the opportunity to just pray for each other. But not in a, like, all got to go quiet and religious and sort of that kind of thing. But actually just in an everyday way, like we're talking now, because that's actually normal, isn't it? When you read what a lot of Jesus did, he was walking along, he was having a picnic, having a barbecue on the beach, he was eating dinner with somebody, he was reclining, he was getting water out of the well, or down the pub, he's kind of equivalent of the pint kind of thing. It's that level of normal, isn't it? And yet somehow we sometimes make it all a bit like, ooh, and we play quietly, kind of. Actually, God is more than able to go, I think I've got a word for you, it's this, what do you think? I've got this verse up for you, is that encouragement to you or not? You look a bit sad, I can't pray for you. That's all we need to do, isn't it? That's the reality of it. Let's pray for the moment. If you feel like, I know what God's already told me, that's fine, then get on and do it. Let's do that. Let's do that encouragement to each other. If you think, I'm not really sure, then just ask somebody to pray with you. We've officially finished, so we can do it as part of our officially finished time before we leave. If that's okay. Is everyone happy with that? Is that clear enough? Brilliant. So I'll pray first for just a moment, and then I'll go, let's do it, and that means we'll go and encourage each other. Yeah, Lord Jesus, please will you come and speak to us through your Spirit this afternoon, and encourage us again to stir up those gifts, which some of us have left dormant, which some of us have kind of forgotten about even through lockdown and everything else, or just life's pressures and stresses and strains. Lord God, will you come and stir us again by your Spirit to be fully who you want us to be as part of your family. Lord, to use those gifts for one another's benefit. Will you stir us again, excite us again about the amazing salvation that we have, and the fact that you've called us to share that with others. You've called us to encourage one another with that as well. Lord, will you show us what our gifting is, what our part of the body is, what our role is in Gracechurch and in your church in this town. Listen.
This morning I woke up, but because I've been sleeping funny on my hand, I couldn't use my hand, like it wasn't working. You know when a part of your body's gone to sleep. And when I was listening to you talking, I was just thinking about that. Like it still works, but I have to work it to make it work. And that talk to me. Sometimes it's easy to go to sleep, and not use stuff that God's given you, and sometimes we've got to just use it to get it back. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a verse there that says God's gifts are given without repentance. What's that mean? That's weird. I remember asking my dad years ago, what's that mean? God's gifts are given without repentance? Does that mean you can have them without being saved? And I think, if I've understood it right, that word repentance just means without turning around or taking away. So in that sense, God gives us gifts, we can let them fall into disrepair, but actually He doesn't have to re-give them to us. They're actually without repentance, they're without turning. In other words, you've got them for good, effectively. But we need to stir the gap around that flame. So yeah, very good encouragement. Okay, that's it. So I think probably easiest to do this by not all sitting in rows doing it, but just kind of going, we've kind of finished, but let's make sure that we go across the room and have that conversation and encourage each other and bring those words, bring those encouragements.